Welcome to episode 31 of Lost in Translation with Bobby Martin. As always, coming live from the WCTV studios in Wilmington, Massachusetts. Bobby, we've made it past 30 now. I feel like we're on a roll. We got a pretty good amount going.
Oh my goodness, this is this is wonderful. Although I'm not sure about past 30. When I was 30 years old, I can't even remember what I was doing. Yeah. So hopefully we won't do this in years.
So today we are joined by a longtime friend of mine, amazing story from Plunge, Lithuania originally to New Hampton Prep in New Hampshire to the University of Maine via basketball. But he stuck around. He's the owner of Critical Mass Solar energy company. Independent businessman, successful businessman, which is not easy. He came over here with nothing and with absolutely no support system. Didn't speak English, and is a true American success story. Freddy Petkus. Freddy, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. And there are some people that still think that I can't speak English. So
I mean, I didn't want to say it, but they may have a point.
There are still haters out there.
It's okay. I was born here, and I still can't really speak English. So I know you're a ways removed from competitive basketball. I also didn't include in there that you were a teacher for a while. You coached boys basketball. You coached girls basketball at the prep level. Basketball is a huge part of your life. And now it's not so huge a part of your life, at least from the outside looking in. Is it weird to have had something be so central to so much of your life and then now it's kind of not so big a part? Maybe I'm wrong and maybe it still is. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely feels weird at times, but the life change and then the lifestyle change is different. It allows me to spend more time with the family and do different things, than just having a regular job, and being a business owner. Sometimes I work a lot more hours, but different hours, right? I can pick and choose when I work and when I do things instead of just 8 to 5 or whatever it is. But to answer your question, I do miss the competitive level, but the biggest thing I miss, and I was talking to Bobby before the recording, kind of training. Like that's what I truly enjoy the most. Working with the kids first thing in the morning and skills, shooting, ball handling, and all that stuff. That's probably like what I miss the most. Don't really miss practices, games, and being a crazy person. Just kind of like, asking for effort, because it seems like that's the biggest challenge for coaches right now is effort, right? And you have to be crazy.
So let me ask this question now. I spent almost 20 years in Spain, and the European style of basketball, I can't remember coaches asking for effort. It was expected. When you mentioned the ball handling and you mentioned, the shooting and the different aspects of the game, most of those guys came in expecting to work hard. It was 2 practices a day. They had been going on forever. I remember my first year in Spain, I actually played against Sabonis, and Stauskas was over there also, I believe. And it was those guys were just on a different level. What's the biggest difference you see in the type of training that the European style and the American style?
Yeah, and funny, I was just talking to somebody the other day about this, how different the rest of the world is compared to American sports system, right? In America, you do sports at school, right? Mm-hmm. And like the AAU is kind of like add-on. In Europe or, pretty much the rest of the world, the coaches are not math teachers or history teachers or whatever, right? They are trained coaches. They went to college to be coaches. So when the kids start playing sports, they don't go from soccer to basketball to, lacrosse or whatever the sports, right? And then kind of getting hurt. These kids have preseason, season, postseason legs. So they work year round, and that's why they have different skills, right? Here in America, coaches are not allowed to work with you in the off season unless they go and do private training, right? Like there, you have camps like from young age, like 2nd, 3rd grade, you go for a summer, a couple of weeks, and then you do, overnight camps, and you train, right, for the season and stuff. So I think that's the biggest difference, and that's why the international players are catching up, right? Like the athleticism can only carry you so much these days. Like the skill is really catching up, and the Americans are now looking the same as they used to. So you got Doncic and Jokic, arguably two heaviest guys in the league, and then they're just clowning people.
Yeah.
Just because the skill is just so different. I mean, it just doesn't even look they put any effort. They're slow, out of shape, and then they still,
I don't think people understand how technically sound Doncic is. I mean, don't get me wrong. The big kid from Joker also. I mean, he's unbelievable. But the subtleties in their games, they drive American players crazy because it's not flash. It's just angles and when to hit someone. I mean, I love watching those guys play.
That's exactly it. Angles. Like they don't go side to side. It's just like a straight step, right? And then Doncic is like what? Like they say he's like 6'7", but like I think he's like closer to like 6'8", 6'9".
Yeah,
he looks massive.
Yeah,
he was standing
when you see him compared to other guards, and you're like, there's no way he's only 6'7".
He was standing next to Barkley the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're like.
Yeah, they listed Barkley at 6'6". He's like 6'5", but Doncic looks like 4 inches taller than him. Like,
Exactly. So yeah, and now imagine if those guys weren't drinking and smoking cigs now too. Like how good they would be now. One of
the things that I over time really started to pay attention to Lithuanian hoops because I got to know Freddy. And the Lithuanian national team was nasty, and it's a country of 3. It's like the size of Rhode Island, And there was a stretch where they beat Team USA and won Olympics. They had Jasikevičius, I gotta butcher his name. They had Robertas Yevtokas, who is crazy, athletic, huge center, and they always gave Team USA a game. Like even a couple years ago, they lost. It was like 99-95 in the Olympics, and it's tiny country, and so I always found it fascinating. And I found out about having some Lithuanian ancestry as well, which got me more interested, which was cool. But, the Lithuanian team was always really athletic. It wasn't the stereotypical Euro team. Like, it was in that it could shoot and they knew angles, but also very athletic. But the more and more I learned was like that basketball is like just massive in Lithuania. Freddie, growing up, what was basketball like in society over there? Its place in society.
The first 10 years, it was pretty big. We had one of the best teams in the USSR, Žalgiris.
Žalgiris, right? Yeah.
So they used to compete against, the Moscow team. So it was really nice to see that. My dad took me to a couple games, so it was really to see it live, right? But once and the Olympics, like the 4 starters on the Soviet team were Lithuanians when they won the gold, right? Yep. Like so it was different, right? And then once the independence, like when we gained the independence in 91 and the 92 Olympics, it was just the 4 starters, they're like Lithuania. So like the first bronze medal, and it really it really changes people's minds and everything, right? And then like I always had these arguments with my dad because he's a huge soccer guy. He was a soccer coach and so on. Basketball is not really a sport. Like we always go at it. And he was like, we don't spend enough money in Lithuania on soccer. I was like you got to win something, right? Like you got to win something for kids to get engaged in it, right? Like right now we have like tennis is pretty good because we had a guy that kind of like exposed. Now we have like 3 or 5, 3, 4, 5 maybe guys that are ranked and then doing a good job. So people are spending money, right? Swimming is big. People are engaged in just because you have a winner, right? Soccer is kind of dragging behind us because it's just we don't win. So you don't win, you don't want kids being heroes of a loser. And I hate to say it like that, but nobody wants to follow somebody that doesn't win. And then I would say the same thing for American soccer too, right? Like great program, right? Like great players, but like they just don't win. So you don't have more and more build-up on this. With basketball, they go in and kind of don't try as much, but they still win. So everybody's like, yeah, I want to be this, I want to be that. So it's big. Once you see a winner, you want to be a winner, right? You want to follow and you want to do whatever it takes to be that winner and to be on that team.
You mentioned, obviously, that 4 of the 5 starters for the Soviet Union and your first 10 years being under the – and I think a lot of people – there's documentary out there, people who are in a history, they get it. But a lot of people don't understand that Lithuania, culturally, linguistically, it's not like Russia or the Slavic countries. It's not, it's not a Russian-based language. It's its own unique language group. That Lithuania was an occupied country. It was conquered. It was occupied. It wasn't a willing participant in the Soviet Union, and yet, you had 4 of those 5 starters were forced to play. There's all kinds of stories about Sabonis, the all-time great, being forced to play through all kinds of awful injuries, and that what his career could have been if the Soviet Union didn't essentially threaten him, his family, everything into continuing to play on, too early after Achilles surgeries and all. What was it like those first 10 years growing up essentially as an occupied country, your life? What was it like? And then what was that independence like?
Yeah, I was only, when we gained independence, I was only 10. But I do remember certain things, like just everybody was supposed to be part of a communist party, right? Like if you're not, you're probably going on vacation to Siberia, forced vacation. It was just the bottom line, right? So, even my parents weren't political or anything. It was just, part of what we used to do. So as kids growing up, we always knew, if somebody comes over and whatever is being spoken, we cannot share with anyone at school or whatever, because you never knew who's listening or who's doing anything. And, you really didn't want to be on a forced vacation to Siberia. So, it sounds crazy, but people were really looking around and over their shoulder what's going on. So, you mentioned like Sabonis being threatened and all that stuff. And that's why he didn't come to the, to the NBA. Marčiulionis was the first one. It was like, you know what, like, I'm going to do it. It wasn't an easy decision, right? But, that was part of life, and that's kind of what it was, and then things have changed. The guys are exposed to it more, and if we don't learn from history, what are we even doing? So.
I remember Jaskevicius, an unbelievable player. He was in Barcelona when I was in Spain. I think I was with Madrid when he was in Barcelona, but he gave people so many problems. I mean, just tough. I don't think people understand, especially American players, how difficult it is in some of the countries in Europe to actually, like you were just stating, to live a normal life. At the time when I was there, this was Yugoslavia and Croatia had just split. And, I played with a couple of Croatians, and, other teams had Yugoslavians. And just watching the tension between them, and we're just basketball players at this time, right? And they're, spitting on each other.
And they were probably boys, like, before the split. Like, there's a great documentary, right? Like, One's Brothers.
Yep.
Like, everything was great, right? And then, like, because like that's how much pride there is in the country, right? Like, it could be a brother, cousins or whatever. It's like they split for the most part, like, especially in like the public view. Like, yeah, you're dead to me. So it's kind of getting better. It's coming back, but those early days, it was wild. And yeah, but Jasikevicius was, like, people remember him like when he came to the States, like he wasn't really playing. And then like the best player in EuroLeague right now, I can't remember his name. He's barely getting any playing time right now in the NBA. And people are not being exposed to this, they're like, oh, what, he's averaging 8 points? 8 points in EuroLeague, that's like 30 in NBA.
Yeah.
Like it's a different ball game.
Yeah, it
right?
really is.
Jasikevicius, I remember when he just lit up Team USA, and that was like 2004. He's a guy I really, truly believe if he was born 10 years later, the way, just from when he came over, like, I don't know, 2006 to somewhere in that time, even from then to now, the way that the emphasis on three-point shooting and volume shooting from behind the arc has changed. Spacing, essentially playing 4 out, small ball. I feel like Jasikevicius is a guy that if he was born 10, 12 years later, he would have had a 10, 12-year NBA career, just based on the way that he plays.
I agree. His biggest thing was, like, he really played with a chip on his shoulder. He's truly, one in a million competitor. Like, you don't get people like that. Like, and even right now, coaching, some people just can't handle him as coaching, but he's one of the best coaches in Europe, and the passion that he has is just, it's like just my way or get out of the way. That's it. It's really that simple. So,
I know you were young. What do you remember about, we talked a long time ago, but about when Lithuania officially declared independence? I know the Soviet Union was starting to crumble, but Lithuania was the first. They were the ones that, and you never know. When you're the first guy through the door, you don't know what's going to happen on the other side, and they were the first to do it. And you were young, but I remember you telling me about your dad going out and not knowing if he was coming back. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was a really tough time. You truly didn't know what was going on, and the Soviet army was coming in and taking on unarmed people just standing, holding hands in front of tanks, and so it was really big. It was patriotic, but I think Lithuania had an advantage because, like, strategically we're positioned on Baltic Sea. Like, we were economically a big piece for the whole Soviet Union, right? A lot of the imports, exports were going to the the little piece of Russia through Lithuania. So once we took that away, and then the world kind of stood behind us, that was a really simple. So I think we, yes, we did it first, but I think we strategically we're positioned in a really good place, geographically to take that. It was wild. We just had the celebration. It was January 13th. Crazy few days, and like just watching on TV, soldiers shooting or tanks running. Like it's surreal. And just looking at it now as a grown, I'm like, what was going on, right? Like what's going through these people's head, heads? Just kind of like, yeah, we're gonna stand for this. And again, that's the cultural and then the country pride is really sadly being lost here in the States, right? With America being what it is, and then with all its faults, like it's really sad that less and less people have the pride in America. And for me, coming here from a different country, I'm still Lithuanian, but my kids are American, my wife is American, a lot of my family here is American, right? Like I am American, right? And then I'm embracing, and then I love the country and the opportunity it has given me, and the life that is created. So really, like you want to do something, this is the place to be. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Like the entire world is like, regardless of what is being said, they just want to flood here and come here because there are opportunities other countries don't really have, regardless of the freedoms that they have, in the European Union. They don't have the same opportunities as we do here for business owners, for anybody that is willing to work hard. So that's kind of one sad thing that I see from a lot of American people. It's like the pride is for this country is not there.
Well, I think part of that is probably, now I don't know about the ethnic makeup in Lithuania, but I had a couple of friends who played with Zalgiris, Tanaka Beard. I don't know if you know Tanaka. So I played with Tanaka in Madrid. And, he had come from, Zalgiris. And he was saying, that he enjoyed the pride that the people showed in their country, but he just didn't see a lot of diversity. Okay, and I'm not talking about I'm talking about diversity in color and ethnic diversity, right? But that it was so strong there that he felt as though he was at home. Okay. I think here we're so divided culturally that the pride that that we should be showing is just too big of a gap, because while you can make it, there are always extenuating circumstances, and it becomes really tough. I think that Europe, even in Spain, the people showed a pride in being Spanish, right? You had your differences between from people from Madrid or Barcelona, things like that. And that's normal, but there was still a huge pride in their country and what they were trying to accomplish.
And I think you're absolutely right in terms of, like the melting pot here in the States, and people coming from different cultures, right? Like, and most of the European countries, they just, it's one race, right? Like that's just like how it is, Argentina, like they just had like, it's just one race, right? It's kind of like how it's, and it's not like, country fault or whatever. It's just like how it is. But like here in the States, like because we do have so many cultures, and it seems you're absolutely right that it kind of gets diluted, and people are more comfortable being proud of like their heritage rather than the home base that we are here in the States.
I remember distinctly. Most of my friends, I didn't see a huge distinction between a waiter in a restaurant or somebody that was could have been famous or whatever. They were just, everybody's in the same place. You're sitting down, you're eating, and it was just a great feeling to see that. There was it didn't seem class oriented. Right. You could be just as proud of being a waiter as you could of being a radio personality or whatever.
It's funny. The life is really simple, right? Just be nice to everybody. People will be nice to you.
Yes.
It's all about the food, or all about the sitting down and having a nice conversation. It doesn't have to be complicated. So it's really like right now here, our life, and again, not to get into too deep into like crazy conversation, but like our life is so easy here that we're looking for problems. We're walking around being like, okay, what can I possibly be upset about, right? I have food, I have roof over my head, my kids are healthy, everything is good, like whatever the circumstance might be, right? And I was like, okay, let me look for some problems to be upset about, right? Whether it's traffic, whether it's somebody taking to, like whatever it is, that's what we look for as a society.
I always try to stay ground. It's a unique crossroad for me with my wife and being African American and being aware of the history and mindful of the history, but also trying to be moving forward and being positive. But like I always talk to her, we always talk about how like at the end of the day we try to always be aware of like, man, it's freezing outside. We got a roof over our head. We're warm. The kids are safe. There's food. It's like trying to be mindful of that. That's been my mindset the last couple of years, really since COVID, I think, has been trying to be a reset of like being mindful of stuff. One thing that I really do want to ask and talk about, because I feel like, and I don't want to stereotype or lump entire groups, but I do feel like the immigrant experience here, like a lot of those people that really take pride in being American, like first generation American, like you get that a lot. Like my grandparents, I didn't even know that I had Lithuanian. I didn't know where they were for the longest time because they're like, no, we're American. Like we came here to America. I had to find out myself. Oh, like I have a family that came from Lithuania. Like what? But when you first came over, man, you came over by yourself to a prep school. You were, what, 18, 17, 19?
Yeah.
And didn't speak the language. Like that is not – it takes a rare breed to just go somewhere to New Hampshire, middle of nowhere, not knowing anybody really, be like, I'm just going all in to across the world away from everybody that I know. How does that come to pass? And tell me about that big leap of faith you took.
In hindsight, like once I went to New Hampton and got picked up at the airport and we got it, and I was like, wait, this is it, right? Like I thought this was like a big time, school and then all that stuff, but like now looking, it's like, yeah, it is a big time school, and then I wish I was looking at the whole experience slightly different, and it did give me a lot of experience being a student, and I went back and worked there as a teacher and coach, for 9 years. But in the hindsight, like I truly had no idea what I was doing. I was like, yeah, there's a school ready for you, because the year before, I didn't get a visa to go to a school in Alabama. Mm-hmm. Just the way immigration worked out. So like I went to New Hampton, and it's like, yeah, there's a school. All right, I'm gonna go, and truly had no idea what I was getting myself into, and looking back, yeah, it was kind of crazy, like with my parents, my brother, and everything. Like everybody living where they're living. Not seeing them as much as what everybody else does. It was weird, but I was always kind of on the fence. I was like, I just don't want to be like a townie. Just staying like where I was born and when I grew up. So,
how hard was it when you got to New Hampton and you don't speak the language? And I mean, it's a team full of future Division I players, but you don't know anyone, you don't speak it. There have been a lot of great players that have come over here. Petkus as a Lithuanian, he did a prep for a year, half a year of college back. Like lots of guys, they come over, they're great players. It's not that they can't play. It's like the culture shock, the distance from home, all that stuff. How hard was it? Were there times when you were like about to pack your bags and go back? Just what was that survival experience like?
It was definitely tough. It was pretty much immediately, because at school, my grades back home were really good. I was a good student. Came to the States, and my grades kind of like tanked a little bit, and I truly understood that it wasn't necessarily because I don't know material. It's just I can't understand it. Math was still, like I had an A just because like I look at the numbers and I solve the problem, right? Like it wasn't an issue. So it's like, he's so smart at math. I'm like an idiot, can't write a paper because I'm writing, the sentences in Lithuanian structure rather than English. It's just like, so there are a lot of different conflicting things, and it really wasn't easy. But again, as time went on, a couple trips with teammates, we went to Nebraska, to my roommate's place, Garth Glissman. He's a SEC basketball commissioner for SEC right now. So that's my roommate, right? Really proud of the guy. He's an attorney, coach basketball, and doing really well. So he took us, myself and then a Serbian guy, to his house for Christmas. Then Wes Miller, who's a coach in Cincinnati right now, he took us to his house.
Wes recruited my son.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went down to North Carolina when he was there. Great guy.
Right.
Great guy. Love Wes Miller.
We just went to see him in Cincinnati with a few guys from New Hampton.
That's awesome.
So, like he took us to his house, and then I went back with Wes for spring break, and then that's kind of like things just shifted. I was like, all right, let's just finish it and let's get it done. But you're absolutely right. It's not easy to just drop everything and just go somewhere, where people don't understand, like what are you about, or and you can't really express yourself because like you're trying to talk to somebody who's just making fun. It wasn't easy, but again, it builds character too. It makes it easier to say no, to get off, whatever. So it's a lot easier now.
You go from there to the University of Maine, and you talk about that built character. Then you go and you play with some characters up at Maine. John Giannini is the coach. Teddy Woodward as the assistant coach. You're there with Mark Flavin, Dave Dubois, Joe Campbell, Kevin Reed, Justin Rouse there your first 2 years, 7-foot shot ball. Just there's a long list of guys who know the America East that are like, I remember all those guys. And it was, when you get to know them, really a interesting mix of foreigners. Udo, another one, a bunch of foreign guys, a bunch of city dudes that wind up somehow in Orono, Maine. Then Justin Rao with his ferrets getting locked inside the library. Like, tell me about the Maine experience for you.
I think it's kind of the same situation, as when I was coming to New Hampton. Some of those city guys like going to Maine, right? Like, because we always try to bring official visits in the spring when it's nice and green, and then people wearing less clothes. It's just like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area, and then. When you realize that it's 6 months, you don't see sun and it's cold, it changes your perspective. And then I think that's the kind of the biggest thing. And that's, I think, like where it's a little harder now to recruit there because you have that information, right? Like in 2000, like internet was there, but nobody was really Googling. And it was like, oh, what is this place about? Oh, they winning, Giannini, like coach of the year. Like, yeah, let's do this, right? So I think that's kind of, but we did have a crazy, eclectic group of people. on the bus, in the hotel. You know, it was, in some ways it was extremely a close group, and in a lot of different ways it was just, you know, everybody like separate, right? Just, so we still talk. You know, I talk to Kev, Dave, you know, Flav here and there. So it's, you know, lifelong friends that you made, and gotta make time for them.
You guys, your 2 of your first 3 years, you guys make it to the championship game. You know, you went up there to be the shooter. Your freshman year, you are the shooter on the team as a freshman. I think the expectations were very high. The talent was very high. You know, people were looking at you as being a potential, you know, star. You know, shooting was becoming a thing back then. And then the back injury after back injury after back injury. But you guys, championship game, 2 out of 3, your first 3 years. And how do you look back on your time at Maine, you know, of being so close in some ways, but then also like never really being able to know what you could have been because of injuries that were out of your control? I think it's safe to say that you never were able to see what your ceiling was because of the back injuries, I think.
I agree, you know, but it also, we're still in the mindset of, you know, European players, you're just going to stand there and shoot threes, right? Like, I think in some ways, a lot of us were misused, right? We were kind of put in maybe our second or third positions for the strength, right? Instead of like looking for the top positions, right? And if you're kind of play, you know, and I mean, you know, like Europeans are not the ones. There are a limited amount of Europeans that are going to come in and demand the ball and demand shots and all that stuff. Most of them are just, you know, like, hey, I'll do whatever it takes for the team, right?
Yes.
I'll play 40 minutes and not take a shot, whatever it takes, right? Like, we don't have that. So we had a couple of guys on the team, you know, they didn't demand, but like that was the expectation, you know, for shots, and it was like whatever's left over, like, you know, like you would do it. So I think you know, we had a great time. We had some really good talent. I think our best chance to win was my junior year, when we lost in the semis to Northeastern to JJ Berea. We were up 3 with like 30 seconds to go. You know, I think we as a team made mistakes. You know, and you know, Coach G and I, we've talked about it. You know, about the mistakes he's made, and you know, these are the things that you know, like we can't take back, but like we're there. You know, I played in 9 America East tournament games, right? Like Maine right now, they played that in 9 years, right? Like they don't play a second game, right? It's just kind of like, hopefully, you know, and it's amazing what Markwood has done so far, and it looks like, you know, the team is on the right track. He's a perfect guy. Hopefully, he stays there, you know, and really build something like what it should be. So it would have been nice to change the history and be the first ones to win it, but it is what it is. You can't control life. You can't control injuries, and you know, like, I truly don't look back as much as you know, maybe I should.
How, you know, you were part of a really close group. I mean, you and Dave Dubois, especially, we've talked about, but like that group of you guys that came in as freshmen together, Joe Campbell, Mark Flavin, I know he was there a year before you, but he was your guys' class. You know, you get hurt, and then you stay an extra year. How hard was it to stay one more year when all those guys that you came in with, that was a very tight group,
It was so
left?
nice to see him leave. Just kidding. You know, there were other people coming in. You know, Udo and I were pretty close at that year. You know, Kevin, were captains for that. You know, my senior year, and then the following year, Mark would. So, and my life was kind of completely different. You know, my eldest, you know, we had Dom my senior year, so the priorities kind of changed. So when the guys left, it kind of made it a lot easier to be what I wanted to be, and, you know, instead of being like kind of pulled a different direction. So you know, even jokingly, yeah, it was nice to see him go, to see him do their own thing. So yeah,
I'm interested to know. So as an American, when we have a chance to go to Europe, and you know, there are different levels of European basketball, of course, but when you go over there and personally, and I'm pretty sure that other Americans feel like this, but personally, I felt as though it was a failure for not being drafted into the NBA. So you go over to Europe as a failure. You figure you're escaping from something, right? From having to face all your friends, for not making it. And then you get to Europe and you see, oh my God, these guys can play. Right. And they're actually better than a lot of guys that I've played with. The system's different. And then you see European players leave America to go back home, right? They don't like NBA basketball at all. They don't feel as though that they can really show what they can do in NBA basketball. What do you think the difference is between the two types of players or the two types of basketball? Because it's still one sport. But what's the difference? Why do you think that the European players are much more apt to go back to Europe and have fun?
Because I think it's still true basketball, right? In the NBA, you got the no help. It's truly made for show, right? Like it's made. Let's draw as many people as possible, with dunks, with the ISOs, with shots, with all that stuff. How can we create higher scoring game, with 3-second defensive violation, all that stuff. So it really allows them to showcase their athleticism. In Europe, it's true basketball. Like, do whatever you want. You want to leave a guy open? I'm just going to leave him open. And I think when Americans go to the Olympics now, they're like we're not that good, right? Like we're like the levels. It's not the dream team anymore, right? Where people are kind of like looking at them as superstars, right? Right now it's like, LeBron is coming. I'm taking it. I'm just showing him that I was in the NBA last year and they didn't give me any time. Let me show you what I got, right? Like the example of Lithuanian kid, Petkus, right? Played at Duke, barely played. He gives Coach K, 28, and then and then they beat Lithuania, and he's like staring him down. So these are the guys, right? Like they play basketball with passion and to win, and then American teams, like they will get the best of other teams. It's like playing against the Super Bowl champs, right? Like they're just gonna give the best. So I really think people that want to come from Europe to the NBA is to make a little bit of money, give themselves the security, and go back and enjoy basketball again, right? Because a lot of them, when they come here, they don't truly enjoy basketball. It's just their job, and it's a lot of money involved. So
you coached girls basketball, true?
Yep.
So what do you see the difference? Is there a difference between women's basketball in Europe and women's basketball here in the United States?
No.
Okay.
I think that's as close as it gets, right? Because girls, the athleticism is not the same as the boys, right? And it's truly the most fundamental team is going to win. And that's what it comes down to, right? Like true basketball. Because if you take two teams, athleticism is going to be very similar. Like the fundamentally sound team will do better. And that's kind of like, in the Olympics, you got NBA players and then fundamentally sound team, but the athleticism still kind of takes over at times. So,
I remember when you were thinking about switching to girls to take the head job. You said you talked to Dennis Wolf, former coach at BU, who became former men's head coach at BU, became women's head coach at Virginia, and he said that like essentially, I think what he said to you, if I remember correctly, is that girls want to be coached still. And from afar, I haven't coached basketball, but I've watched a lot of, gotten to know up close. It does seem like, especially at the high school level, girls want to be coached more. There isn't as much of the let me get my own videographer out there to get a private mixtape made. Let me just go ISO every time. I don't want to hear what my coach has to say. Do you feel like that's accurate, that girls are more coachable right now?
It was. I think that has changed.
Yeah.
I think that has changed in the last, 6 to 7 years, especially with the NIL. Everybody wants to, because for girls, there's really no money outside of, college, if you're lucky, and then that's it, right? They go into work. There's really no basketball in the WNBA or in Europe, and some of them make a lot more money in Europe just because they piggyback off the soccer teams.
Right.
That's where the money is from, right? Like even the basketball, like men's basketball teams don't make money. They most likely lose. It's the soccer teams that sponsor. just like here in college, you know, it's usually the football and men's basketball. It's just the reality of the world, right? But that has changed. And then the girls, I think the kids in general want to be coached. It's the parents that have a hard time with the coaching. That's what the problem is, right? It's like, how can you talk to my kid? And you're like, you were just yelling at your kid yourself. Like, this is not the time, right? Like, don't talk to the kid when they're playing basketball. Like, let me do it, right? And I always try to tell my parents, I was like, not my parents, but like players, my player parents, hey, if you know, you parented your kids at home and they need some loving at practice, let me know. And I will do the same. If I went at them in practice, I'll call you or let you know after the game.
Right.
Like, you need to give love right now. We cannot be, you know, you crushing and then without me knowing that you just crushed your daughter. Like, I'm crushing in practice, right? Like, and a lot of parents like really can't differentiate. And a lot of times, you know, like when you're coaching, you know this about it. Like, sometimes you just have to like wing it, and sometimes you just have to like pretend you're mad. Like, it's just like you just have to be an actor. Like, you're like, how can you
So
go
true.
like going like from a crazy person to like smiling like as he turns around, right? Like, it's just it's all an act and trying to, you know, get engaged in it. Like, but I think that the biggest issue right now with the dynamic is the parents and kids. Kids still want to be coached, right? But the parents are having a hard time seeing their precious kids being talked to like that.
So I know that time is fleeting. You got big business to get to, but it's one of the things that I wanted to ask about is, I think when you came over here originally, you know, let's call a spade a spade. You played pro ball before you got over here. They just didn't call it that. You know, it happened with a lot of the good youth players in Europe. They play for pro teams. They're not paid to stay eligible for NCAA rules, whether you were or not. That's the reality of it. But you got a taste of that. Injuries happen. You make the decision that pro ball, which was a dream, I think, is no longer. You stay here. A lot of people don't. You teach. And then you go off on your own into the business world. That's a big step to leave the teaching world, where in the Northeast there's at least some security in teaching. There isn't in other parts of the country, but there, you know, teachers are treated pretty well here. That's a big leap of faith. That's the old school American dream of like, I'm going to open my own business and try and make it. And that was, I'm trying to remember how many years ago, several years
like
ago.
2017.
Yeah, 2017 that you start, and you're surviving. You're growing. You're everything. What's it been like running your own business and surviving during and everything that comes with it? What can you say about being a independent business owner in this day and age? And just tell me about that.
I think it was the same kind of situation as like I truly had no idea what I was getting myself into. Like, as I was doing New Hampton, I was like, you know what, like. This is my dream. This is kind of the reason I wanted to come to the States. I want to come to the States, get my business degree, go back to Europe, play basketball, make some money, start a business, do, you know, like the kind of the business world. A few steps didn't happen as kind of like the way I planned. Was still running, you know, doing like private lessons at New Hampton. Like, the gym was available. At Lawrence Academy, same thing, you know, summertime. Like, to me, that was like kind of like what I wanted to do, right? And I was thinking about doing a gym and like different ideas. And then, you know, a solar business through a buddy of mine kind of like came into play. And, you know, now we're like a few weeks away from being 7 years in business.
That's awesome. Wow.
So,
Congratulations.
You know, thank you. You know, we're growing. We're finally able to get my wife on board. You know, she's a full-time co-owner. With me, she's, you know, she was a school psychologist. We're able to pull it out with that, because with two little ones at home, you know, it was really too much for her to go deal with the world's problems and then put a happy face, come home and pretend and pretend, you know, like there's no issue and deal with me. Yes, I'm her like the most challenging case, and she still refuses to believe that.
Shouts out to your wife.
Right, exactly.
Well done.
A lot of people say that, but I think, you know, and I truly give her a lot of props for allowing me to do this, because I think that's the biggest thing for anybody that's starting a business, to have a support person. And the support person, not necessarily that they're going to, you know, stand for you and just be like, yes, man or woman, be like, yeah, you're doing great. It's just, it's anytime you're starting a business, you need somebody to come home to and not be crushed again. Because like, going to customers is like, no. If you come home and you get the same thing, it's just like eventually you're just going to burn out. So kudos to her. She was never doing it, and when I did quit the Lawrence Academy job, she was 7 months pregnant. We didn't really know where we're going to live. She asked us, like, how much you going to make? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what I'm going to sell is like, what are we going to make? Like, what are you going to sell? Like, literally have no idea. So, she took a leap of faith in me, and that allowed me to truly go out and not disappoint her and the family, right? Like, it really, like, I'm not a big fan of, like, the saying, but I really enjoy the saying is, like, nobody cares, work harder. Like, that's, when you think, it's like, oh, what are people going to think? Nobody's even thinking about it. And if they are, it's probably like hoping you fail, right? Just because it makes them feel better. So, I just went out every day and tried it. And, we are growing. We're getting it more in the commercial business now, trying to do like commercial, installations. So, we're just trying to give it a nice, growth rate. And brought the boys in. They are models. So it's a true family business.
Nice.
That's awesome. I might have to talk to the property owner here about that, especially the way our electricity bill's hitting us sometimes. So, well, Freddie, I feel like we could do a part 2 of this because there's so much that we haven't touched upon. I know that you had a hard line because you got a big business meeting to get to. I tried to keep us right within that.
That's perfect. Appreciate it.
Oh, man, 2 minutes within that. So thank you so much for joining us today, man. Your story is really remarkable. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of that story, and I think that there's a part 2 to this in the future.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.